Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to try and unpack a really perplexing message from Donald Trump about China's massive military parade, a message that seemed to pull in two completely opposite directions at the very same time.
Okay, so let's just get right to the heart of it. On one hand, you have Trump calling this whole thing a hostile conspiracy against the USA. But then, almost in the same breath, he turns around and calls it a beautiful ceremony. I mean, what gives?
So how can it be both? That's really the question we're tackling today. And to figure it out, we've got to look at what exactly was being celebrated, who was there, and what messages were really being sent by Beijing and, yeah, by Trump too. All right, first up, a parade of power. Let's look at the spectacle in Beijing. Okay, so to really get Trump's reaction, you first have to understand the sheer scale of what he was even looking at. We're talking 12,000 troops marching through Beijing's Tiananmen Square. Now, the official line was that it was to commemorate the end of World War II, but let's be real, the message was very much for today. But, this wasn't just about boots on the ground, not at all. China rolled out its most advanced and, let's be honest, its most intimidating military gear for everyone to see. I mean, we're talking about hypersonic missiles, the kind that are super hard to defend against, and stealth drones. This was a message, loud and clear, especially to the US, about its growing military might. No question about it.
Okay, next section. An alliance on display. Let's talk about who was in the room.
Sometimes the guest list for a party tells you everything you need to know, and this was no exception. So look who showed up. Leaders from Russia, North Korea, and Iran. And then look who didn't. The United States, most of Western Europe, and a big regional rival, India. This wasn't just some get-together. It was a carefully staged snapshot of a new geopolitical divide. And believe me, a guest list like that does not happen by accident. Not a chance. It is a very deliberate diplomatic statement. It's sending a clear signal of strategic alignment for all these nations that are kind of positioning themselves outside that traditional Western bubble.
All right, so what was the bigger message here? Let's dive into China's message to the world, because this was way more than just a parade.
So, President Xi gets up there and gives a speech, and he basically frames the whole global situation as this huge choice. A choice between peace and war, between talking things out or confrontation. And of course, he positions China as the leader of a new kind of world order, standing, as he put it, on the right side of history. So, if you boil it all down, what was the point? Well, the parade was really a three-pronged message. 1. Reaffirm China's status as a global power. 2. Symbolically unite its allies against pressure from the US. And 3. Show off an alternative vision for how the world could be run. And that brings us right back to where we started, Trump's totally contradictory response, which he fired off on Truth Social. So first up, he does not hold back at all. He straight up accuses the leaders who were there, Xi, Putin, Kim, of actively conspiring against the United States. I mean, that's a pretty direct and confrontational thing to say. And then he pivots to history. He brings up the American sacrifices made to help China back in World War II, and he's kind of questioning whether they even remember that support while they're having this huge celebration. And then, and this is the whiplash part, he does a complete 180 and starts praising the event. He calls it a beautiful ceremony and even admits that it was designed to get attention. And hey, it worked. It got his. So here it is, laid out side by side. On one side, you have this dangerous accusation of a conspiracy against the USA. On the other, pure admiration for a great and beautiful day of celebration. He's basically condemning why they're all gathered there, but at the same time, he's complimenting how they did it. It really makes you wonder, right? Why the double message? That's the contradiction right at the heart of all this. So, what does this all mean now? Let's try to read between the lines here. This whole thing is basically a masterclass in modern strategic messaging. It shows this fundamental clash of worldviews where, a parade is never just a parade, and a social media post isn't just a social media post. They're all moves in a really high-stakes game of geopolitics. And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? Are these huge, grand displays and these sharp-tongued online responses, are they driven by a real concern for world peace? Or are we all just watching a new kind of political theater play out on the world stage? I guess that's the ambiguity we're left to figure out.